Some Fujifilm cameras, like the X-T5, have a very interesting way to shoot a 160 megapixel image. But is that really worth using? That is the subject of today's video. Well, hi everyone, welcome to Pal to Tech. Today we're talking about a relatively new feature added to Fujifilm cameras called Pixel Shift Multi-Shot. It allows you to capture a very high-resolution 160 megapixel image. So who would actually want to do this? Well, anyone that's shooting products or perhaps archiving photo albums or documents. Anytime it's important to retain as much detail as possible for post-production. And of course, another feature would be if you are planning on outputting very large size prints of your images. Pixel Shift Multi-Shot is located right in the camera icon on your menu. Also, make sure that you have the Stills movie dial set to still and your drive dial set to S, or it will not appear in the menu. It has 6 settings. A shortest interval plus 1 through 15 second interval options. And of course, off. So once you pick one of these options, what exactly does your camera do? Well, if it's used on an X-T5, that will cause the camera to shoot 20 shots in lossless compressed RAW format. While it is actually taking each of those 20 shots, it is using your camera's IBIS mechanism to very slightly move the sensor. What it does is it purposely shifts your sensor just a little bit over by half a pixel for each photo that it takes. Now, some camera models, such as the GFX 100, will actually shift it by 1 full pixel. But why is it shifting it at all? I mean, what's the point of all this? Because of the manner in which your sensor captures color. It records only red, green, or blue colors on each pixel. Basically 1 color per pixel. And then normally your camera sort of guesses, right, what the other 2 colors are for that pixel based on the information from the other surrounding pixels. I'm trying to keep this really simplistic here, but by shifting around the sensor to the neighboring pixels, the camera will then get all the information for all 3 RGB colors. Not 1, but 3 of them. 1 for each pixel. And it stores all of this additional color information throughout those 20 RAW files that it's taking. And then in post-production, Fujifilm's special software will combine all of those RAW files. The software sort of shifts them back together, and then it outputs one huge resolution single RAW DNG file. And then that RAW DNG can be opened in either Capture One or another supported program and edited as you normally would. Besides getting a much higher resolution image doing this, you are also getting very accurate color reproduction since you're getting the actual red, green, and blue colors for each pixel at the sensor level. When using Pixel Shift Multi-Shot, you generally want to choose shortest interval. And that's because the shorter time you spend between each shot, the less likely you are to maybe move the camera or something like the wind might appear and it might move your subject. However, if you're shooting with a flash, you're going to want to choose a longer time period so that you have enough time to recycle the power on the flash before the next shot. There's a few camera setting restrictions if you use Pixel Shift Multi-Shot, and these are applied automatically once you choose the interval. First, the camera will automatically switch to electronic shutter only. You see here how the shutter type is disabled and set to electronic. Even though your camera is in electronic shutter mode, you can still use a flash. Second, the maximum ISO value that you can use is 1600 ISO. If you try and rotate the ISO dial beyond that, you'll see that it stops right here at 1600. Third, you can only shoot in AFS or manual focus mode. You cannot use continuous autofocus AFC. And lastly, your flicker reduction setting is forced into the off position and it cannot be enabled. Now, something else to keep in mind, if you are using the exposure compensation dial, whatever setting that you use on that dial will be applied to all 20 images that are taken. So those are the camera setting restrictions. However, there are 2 other shooting restrictions, and they are big ones. The first is that you cannot move the camera at all. The camera must be completely locked down. Even if you just slightly move it, just a little bit during the time it's taking those 20 images, you're going to get artifacts in your final image, you're going to get errors appear in the program, and you're generally going to have a bad day. So don't do that. And second, your subject must be completely still. I mean, completely still. And that is definitely going to be a problem if you want to use pixel shift multi-shot to capture a running giraffe. Once you're all done taking the 20 images, you load them up into the free Fujifilm Pixel Shift Combiner software. The app is available for both Windows and Mac. The first thing you need to do is click the Register Jobs button. Then you browse to the folder you want to import the images from. At this point, the Open button will be grayed out. What you have to do is actually select one of the 20 raw images. You don't need to select them all. What I recommend doing is first copying the 20 images from the SD card, because you probably shot some other images on it as well, and then move those 20 images, those 20 raw files, into their own folder. You can choose either high resolution plus accurate color or just accurate color. Let's go ahead and pick the first one since we're really wanting to end up with a high resolution image here. Just go ahead and click Open. The program will then start processing the images. Once done, it'll say completed. If you select it, you can click on Check Result to see how you did. That'll open a window that unfortunately isn't resizable. It will allow you to browse around and see if you have any serious issues like artifacts or ghosting. You're really going to want at this point to just open up the finished DNG file in an editor. And the program has already saved the DNG file to the same location as where your 20 raw files were. Of course, you can change that output folder to something else, perhaps a monitored folder for Lightroom or Capture One. If you want, you can then process another set of 20 images. Just click on Register Jobs again to do this, which will add another job to the list. If you see a yellow warning that mentions defect detected, I'd say it's a 95% chance that either your camera moved or your subject moved during those 20 shots. Remember, this process is extremely sensitive to movement. Before we continue, I would like to give a big thanks to today's video sponsor, Soundcore by Anker. They just released the new Soundcore Liberty 4 NC wireless earbuds. These are the strongest noise-canceling earbuds that Soundcore has ever made. Their advanced noise-canceling system consists of an in-ear sound sensor, low distortion driver, and noise isolation chamber, combined with an adaptive ANC 2.0 technology to offer noise canceling as strong as up to 98.5% of noise reduced. Thus, it's constantly adapting to the user's ear and the sounds that are going on all around them. Pairing them with a smartphone takes seconds, and the Soundcore app offers many customization options and settings. There is adaptive noise canceling with environment detection, a manual mode, and even various transportation modes. And customize the controls individually for each earbud. Your music and your call quality will now sound crisper, clearer, and more detailed no matter what type of noisy environment you find yourself in. The case can easily be opened by pressing on the front button. The earbuds come in 5 colors and have a USB rechargeable battery life of up to 10 hours playtime on a single charge. The included charging case extends this to up to 50 hours of playtime. The case also offers a fast charge of 10 minutes for 4 hours of play, as well as wireless charging. I will leave a link in the description down below this video where you can check out these new Soundcore Liberty 4 NC wireless earbuds. Now, back to the show. Assuming you do get a completed message, you can now open your DNG file, coming in at over 600 megabytes for the one single image. Let's open it now and take a look. The image on the left is a regular 40 megapixel raw file at 7728 by 5152 pixels. The image on the right is the combined multi-shot DNG at 15,456 by 10,304 pixels. I'm going to go ahead now and just crop out the watch part on both images. Then let's zoom in and see what we get. No doubt about it. Look at this area right here on the watch. There's clearly more detail here, and I'm about, 150% zoomed in. Zooming in quite a bit more, you can see that the pixel shot version's increased resolution really shows here, but I am zoomed in pretty far. If I pull back out to 100%, it is less noticeable. For the next set of images, same thing. Comparing the pixel multi-shot version at 100%, you can see far more detail. Even shot on the 18 to 55mm zoom lens, which overall at the 18mm focal length is a bit soft at the center. On the left, you can barely see the gaps between the latches, while on the right, they're soft but more discernible. I decided to test out AI, and in particular, Topaz Gigapixel AI, and compare those results with Fujifilm's multi-shot. I processed one raw file in Gigapixel on the 4x setting with the HQ model. I then saved it back out as a DNG, but I could have chosen to export it as a JPEG or a TIFF. In fact, I probably should, considering how large it is. That is like the file size of Avatar on Blu-ray. Opening the file up in Capture One, you'll see that the output from Gigapixel for the TIFF file does need additional color editing and so forth. However, I'm just going to leave it as is so that we just focus only on the resolution portion. Damn, look at that. These look pretty close. In fact, from a resolution standpoint, I actually like the Gigapixel version just slightly better. Let's see closer up. Wow, that is not even a close call. Look at the difference in detail here. And here. Yeah, there's a few areas of the image it may not have, upscaled all the way, but overall, the result is incredibly impressive. How about we use a regular, straight out of the camera JPEG, run it through the exact same settings in Gigapixel, and see how that stacks up against the Pixel Shift multi-shot version. Okay, here we are. Image on the left is the original Pixel Shift shot combined DNG. The image on the right is the original camera JPEG that was processed in Gigapixel at the same settings as before. Wow, have a look at this! The 35 megabyte JPEG versus the 600 megabyte pixel shot DNG. The difference is clear to me, at least. Using a program like Gigapixel AI to upsample a JPEG file is as good or better with regard to resolution than trying to use Pixel Shift multi-shot on the camera. Now, of course, I only tested a few photos, but here's the thing. Even if there were a number of times that Pixel Shift would give better results, I still would probably use AI instead at this point. And that's because of one massive advantage of doing it this way. You can shoot without having to worry about subject motion or having to lock your camera completely down. You are completely free from both of those restrictions. Of course, programs like Gigapixel AI are not cheap. And so, if you're wanting to bump up your resolution on your X-T5, then consider giving Pixel Shift multi-shot a try. It is completely free, as is the software to combine it, and you will definitely get more resolution provided that you use it properly. Well, I'm going to go ahead now and shift out of here. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found the video helpful, or at least entertaining. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. I am going to be signing off now, but have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in a new video next week. Take care.